10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3.
Spike Milligan, I think he's a genius. Mad, but a genius.
Insane. Clever, but quite insane.
Not insane, but mad, yeah.
I don't know any of them.
Spike, why did you choose that music to start the program?
I liked that. I liked the music itself, but I also liked the fact that he was the first man to make it appear that you didn't have to be very, very serious in your approach to classical music. He used to put funny titles like Music for Half a Pear and A Small Dog, and then write a very nice piece of music to it, you know.
This was Satie.
Satie, yeah, Satie.
Is it a state of mind, that music, which you aspire to?
I must admit, I heard the music first before I knew of the man's personality, and the music I found very soothing and relaxing, something that I crave.
I'd like you, Spike Milligan, actor, goon, singer, musician, author, playwright, poet, illustrator.
Part-time human being, but overdrawn at the bank.
Overdrawn at the bank and born in India, where you lived until you were 12, to hear about your image first from your aunt, Eileen McIntyre.
He had no sense of humor whatsoever. I can't remember him ever having any sense of humor at that time. So he obviously got it from his father, who was a great comedian. He was rather quiet, very friendly. He had quite a lot of friends. And I won't say he had a particular sense of humor at that time. He didn't. And he's very fond of books, and also loved animals.
It's rather striking that you had no sense of humor as a child. Is she right, do you think?
It's an amazing shock to hear that. I'm not, thinking very quickly, I think perhaps she was right. I was a very sort of serious kid, I think, yes. Very sensitive. I don't think perhaps she was right, yes. Or that, or she didn't have a sense of humor.
I wonder whether the humor was something that built up later as the pressures of adult life built up.
David, I wouldn't know, dear lad. You're making me have to think at very high speed. I must admit, it doesn't seem at that time I did have a sense of humor. I seemed to be a very overwrought child. I think it started to appear around about the age of 14 or 15, I think. Somewhere around about then, I started to get a little strange.
What was your childhood in India like? Do you remember it as a happy time?
Yes, it's very trance-like, it seems. I seem to have been, I was an only child in a house full of women because my grandfather died and my father was away learning how to drive iron tractors. Therefore, it was a female atmosphere, and therefore a very gentle one. And I went to a convent, a lot of girls. So I think, yes, I think it was, yes, I think I had a good childhood, yes. I don't have any traumatic feelings about it at all.
What kind of life was it in India then? Was it did you have servants? Were you looked after? Was it like a...
Yes, I had an ayah and a cook called Dimbleby and a boy called Thambi. I wasn't aware of being superior at all because I grew up with them, so I hadn't been brought from England and accepted them as servants. I thought they were just part of the sort of family thing. And I remember a lot of sunlight and a lot of playing hockey with the chokras on the Maidan, and a lot of running, pretending to be a racehorse, and a lot of swimming in the Bund in the Victoria Gardens, and going to the Western Turf Club racecourse in Pune, and I remember seeing the Aga Khan in his orange, and the first time I saw his racing colours, I think it was green with a chocolate sash. It still is, I think, anyhow, it used to be. And I remember betting on horses with 1 or 2 pice I used to have and winning, whereas my mother used to go with the governor's stand with 100 rupees and come back skint. Used to borrow from me for the rest of the week. I was 7 at the time.
Was it a religious household? When you say you went to a convent?
Yes, very religious. Catholic family. I had to go to church every Sunday. And I liked it because they had a sung mass in Latin. And there's also an Indian priest who said the Mass in Tamil. And I used to get the giggles because it sounded just like this. Igri bagri, igri bagri. Igri bagri, igri bagri, igri bagri, igri bagri, bagri. And I had to be suppressed many times.
You were too young, weren't you, to laugh at
Yes.
that?
Well, I just thought it was a funny sound.
Did you, when you went back to England, was it a shock for you? It must have been a very strange England to come back to at the age of 12.
Well, I'd never been to England. So I'd born in India. When I first came to England, I found it we arrived up the Thames in a thick fog in a ship called the Rajputana, which now lies at the bottom of the sea. It was in a combat during the war. And we were holed below the waterline, and there was a lot of rushing around on deck and putting on of life belts when all was well, and the fog lifted, and there was England. And it didn't look any better with the fog lifted than when it was down to me at the time, you know. Very grey and dull. It was in January. I remember there was a rose lying on the deck of the ship that I was on from a previous night party or something, and there was a lighterman below us, two very heavy lads down there with broken noses, you know. And I threw the rose down as sort of a gesture of friendship, and the chap saw it. I remember looking at it, and then he kicked it over the side of the ship into the water. That was my introduction to the English.
And you went to school in England and then left school when you were 15?
About 15, yes.
Do you miss not having had a longer, more formal education?
I'd like to have gone to university. I think I'd have been a good scholar. I think I'd have been a good university student. I'd love to have gone, yes.
Did you feel at a disadvantage later on in your life?
Well, I feel
because
at
of that?
disadvantage now. I still don't know what grammar is or syntax, and I should think it was a text on sin, you know. And I don't know how to punctuate, and my publisher says, your books are very funny, Spike, but your bloody spelling, you know.
Had you, before the war, had you done any performing of any kind, musical performing? Or?
Yes, I used to play the trumpet in a jazz band, and I wanted to just be a great jazz band player. And when the war came, of course, went to the army, and you got off guards if you became a boxer or a trumpeter. And I tried the boxing and got killed, so I stuck with the jazz band. And then when we did concerts, they'd say, can you play a few numbers on the stage? The officers said, can you play a few numbers? So I played numbers, and it looked, I could say things in between, you know, we're going to play number now 6 or something like that. And they'd get a few laughs, and then they said, don't you think we can do a comedy turn, sort of thing, you know? So we did, we got dressed in rags, and it developed into that. And when the war was at its full spate, I got wounded, and then we got taken back and put into a concert party, and I used to play the trumpet for Harry Seacombe in the band for his act. And then, bit by bit, I was asked to do more and more. It got that way.
But your father was an entertainer or performer. I mean,
Yes.
he enjoyed that.
Yes, he was a soldier showman. He was a soldier, frustrated actor. His father put him in the army when he was 14, a poor Irish family. You know, you went in the army or you committed suicide. There's one way. So he did this, but he always wanted to act and perform, and he did it all through his life as a soldier showman, he used to call himself. He's very, very good. Very, very good.
John Antrobus is has been a colleague of yours on many of the things you've written, a
Yes,
friend of yours.
yes.
I'd like you to hear him talking about your time in the army during the war.
I think Spike found the German army in the war less of a threat than he finds the income tax people and the accountants and the overdrafts of today. I mean, they're more abstract and vague, and there never seems to be a release from them. And I think this is how Spike feels. In the army, you had your pay, you had your uniforms, your meals provided, you had your comradeship, you had the ever-present risk of death. But perhaps that was the thing that would least worry Spike. I think he finds civilian life much more worrying than being in Africa or Italy.
Analysis.
What's your comment on that?
That's a brilliant analysis of what life is like, yes. Roll on World War III. So right, yes, I suddenly realised you can get to grips with the enemy, but you can't get to grips with civilian life, overdraft. What can you do about an overdraft? No. Take it down on a piece of string or keep it in a cage. You know what I mean?
Were you tempted to stay in the army?
I did stay on, actually. I stayed on I stayed on, when I could have been demobbed in 45, I stayed on 46, rather than come home.
And were you attracted by that kind of security? I mean, some people
Yes, I was.
like the formality of the army and the way it rigidly controls your life.
Yes, I've suffered army discharge withdrawal symptoms ever since I left it. It was very secure, very funny, and if you don't get killed, very good life.
And what are the withdrawal symptoms?
Well, the security went out of my life. Suddenly, I'd never had an overdraft in the army. If you did, you didn't nobody worried about it. Suddenly there you were face to face with A, unemployment, B, where you get your next meal, clothes, rent, rates, taxes, overdrafts, all this sort of thing, you know.
Did you ever think of going back into it?
No, I never did. I never did. No, I think I wanted to try and make a go of the entertainment world.
Do you have any habits left over from military life? I mean,
Yes, I sleep with my socks on. It's true, I'm sorry. Yes, so I suddenly realised that, yes. I sleep with my socks on. And I swear a lot when I'm angry. I swear a lot, terrible lot. And I talk like a soldier, of course, you know.
You came out of the army with a disability pension, didn't you? And you had a mortar shell land near you at Monte Cassino, I think.
Yes, I think actually I landed near the mortar shell rather than came to me. I was running towards somewhere, and if I'd have stayed where I was in the first place, I wouldn't have copped it. See, I was asking for it, really.
Has that affected you? Is that still
No,
something?
no. I got a cut in the leg, you know. I was very glad about that. I thought, thank God, at last I've been wounded, you know. I get the pension now. And what happened was I was also out of my mind. It had completely unbalanced me, you know. I was stuttering and stammering and giggling and saying to the sergeant, can we have the next dance over the precipice together, darling? You know, and they took me to a first aid station somewhere, and I've never recovered since.
You mean that?
Well, it did change me, yes. I suddenly found that I couldn't take any large amount of stress. If any stress is involved in my life, I immediately start to go under and become depressed, you know.
And before the war, that had never happened to you?
No. I was very happy, easy, outgoing boy, you know.
Just one thing on the war. In the books you've written, very funny, bawdy books about the war, one of the characteristics that comes through all the time is that you don't seem to think very highly of the commanding officers, the officer ranks, with the exception perhaps of your own commanding officer. Was that something that you felt very strongly, that you were, as Pommies, got done down all the time?
No. I don't. I loved all the officers I had. There was one or two idiots who met chaps hanging their teeth out. But in the main, they were very splendid. There was Lieutenant Button, was very good. Lieutenant Wright, remember them all so well. Bowman Smith. There was Major Chater Jack, marvellous officer. No, did I take the mickey out of the officers? Must have been a lie. No, I'm certain I didn't, David. Read it again. Read volume 3, when I'll write it all out. I'll say, I love my officers. Yeah.
When the war ended, there was a period of doing various things before the Goon Show began in 51, I think, and ran through till about 60.
It was called unemployment.
It was called unemployment. I want you now to hear from somebody whose title, I think, is Cogvoss. Is that right?
Oh, Jimmy
Grafton, King of the Goons and the Voice of Sanity.
Yes? Keeper of the Voice of Sanity.
Cogvoss.
Come on, Jimmy, hurry up. Last bus goes at 10:30.
He's looked at the world and decided that it's peopled with idiots, and therefore he's created his own world of idiots in an extreme form. And if you think of the characters in the Goon Show, you have Gritpipe Thin, who was a supercilious idiot. You have Henry and Minnie Crun, who are aging, doddering idiots. You have Moriarty, who is a teeth-gnashing, incompetent, frustrated plotter. You have the child idiot, Blue Bottle, always victimized. And you have Eccles, who I think is the nearest thing to what you might say is Spike's own id, a very simple, uncomplicated character who doesn't want to be burdened with the responsibility of thinking and just wants to be happy and enjoy himself. And I think that fundamentally is Spike. I've always told him that I think that Eccles is the true Milligan and the rest is just a cover.
I'm sorry.
Is he right?
I'm afraid he's right. Yes. That's it, man, you know. I don't want to know about thinking and all that thing about earning money. I just want to be an idiot. I sit up to my neck in a bucket of custard and enjoy it, you know.
Do you see all the rest of the world as idiots? Everybody else as idiots?
David, it's not looking at them as being rude because they're idiots, but I think society, we are idiots, yes. We're a very vicious form of idiot, you know. I don't think man is a success at all. He never really improved himself once he came out of the swamp, you know. still commits murder, still wants to make money, and still wants this and that and the good things of life. He repeats himself repeatedly and gets nowhere with it, you know. A current example is, you know, like we have a massive governments all over the world, and each one is telling us the dangers of inflation. But despite all the knowledge about monetary affairs, they can't stop it. Helpless, you know.
Did you, is it because you see the rest of the world as idiots in that way that you feel, which you do quite clearly feel, great pressures on you that after the war you had a nervous breakdown during that first round of the Goon Show? Was it because of that view of the world as idiotic?
What really hurt me in the war most of all was I was an individual, very individual, and there I was being lumped en masse. And I was going to be killed by somebody who was chucking a lump of iron in the air and was going to drop on me and kill me. And I found this, emotionally, mathematically, the wrong answer to the sort of life I wanted to lead. I'd like to have been a Spitfire pilot where I was in charge of myself. That I would have been okay. I wouldn't have minded if I got killed and right, Daddy. But that's the way I wanted it. And I wasn't a Spitfire. I was one of those chaps in the hole of the ground, like all these other poor lads, you know.
Because I suppose a lot of people would say, well, it's true, of course, in one sense that the world is idiotic. On the other hand, we all have to live in it. We all do the best we can within it. Mm-hmm. And Spike, in a sense, opts out by saying we're all idiots. And
I don't include myself. I do include myself. I include myself, Dad. I mean, in a couple of hours' time, a lot of people are going to be crushed into a steel tube, crammed into it, you know, like this. Where in Africa, in the Sahara, there's miles of empty space, you know, open space. These two together on the same planet at the same time, and these poor people being forced into this iron tube and driven all congested together like this. I think it's idiocy. We have to do it, but it is idiot, you know.
You said after that nervous breakdown, that first breakdown, when you went into hospital for about 3 months, that you emerged as a different person, that there was a pre and a post-breakdown person.
Yeah.
Did you mean that? In what way?
I suffered a personality change. I was nice and kind, sort of gentle person, and I found that the world pressurized me so much. I found people more tougher than me, and I used to do what they told me to do. And by accepting what they told me, like waking me up 3 in the morning, say I want a script in an hour's time and all this, I did it while they went back to bed, and it crucified me. When I came out much tougher.
But did having that breakdown, was one of the consequences of it that you, in a sense, knew yourself better from then onwards, that you understood the pressures on you? Or was it the beginning of a series of uncontrollable depressions?
No. I obviously I'm a person who can get into a depression now. That's just like a chap with one leg that's going to fall over more often than a guy with 2. I have to accept that. But the personality has changed until I become more rugged. I can't stop the depressions. They happen sometimes, you know, without stopping them. But I've become a much more rugged person because I've got to be. Otherwise, if I became nice again, I'd be walked all over again. People walk all over you, Daddy, you know, like all the time. Have you noticed the footmarks on your back today, David?
One of the consequences of that breakdown and of the whole pressures of the Goon Show was that your marriage broke up, your first marriage broke up. And I want you now to hear from Peter Sellers, who thinks that altered your attitude to people and particularly to women. Peter Sellers, who incidentally dressed rather curiously because he's on a film set when we talked to him.
He also wants to marry me.
I think he used to like people, but he found a great deal of disillusionment in that area and began to take more to plants and animals, and especially to animals, and I think he's frightened of people. Basically, he's a romantic, and he was very deeply in love with his first wife. And when that began to break up, and he had his illness, he became more and more withdrawn, and began basically to hate women. A feeling I'm sure he has to this very day. I hope his present wife will excuse me, but I'm sure she would agree that I don't think he really likes women.
No, I suppose, well, everybody breaks up with, has a marriage broken up, gets a bit bitter, but that's only, so I say, human beings. I don't hold it, no. My first wife was a very fine woman, and I was in the middle of a terrible nervous breakdown, and I was awful. Must have been actually abominable, and she couldn't stand it, that's all. She left, and it's one of those things, unfortunate facts of life that happened. Tragic thing to happen. Anyhow, no, I don't hate women, no.
You don't hate women?
No, I don't hate women, no.
You wouldn't have preferred to live in the Garden of Eden before God took the rib out?
Knowing myself better now, I would never have married, knowing what I was going to put people through. I wouldn't have put my first wife through the hoop had I known I was going to be like it. But then I was different before I married her. Then I had the breakdown, and she said to me, "You're not the same man I married." And it was true. It's a tragedy, isn't it? What can we do, David? These things happen in life, possibly happening at this very moment.
Do you find the company of animals and of children more refreshing?
Children, yes, especially. Children and animals, yes. I find such a nearness to children and animals, you know. Animals, I think, like my brothers and sisters. Even the worm, even the flea, I consider them all in union with me, you know. I'm a part of them. They're part of my life, you know.
More part of your life than other adults, than...
Well, something happens to adults. I don't know what happens. You see, they're put into a material world. The world of European materialism is one I don't like, and everybody's operating. And even though they're nice people, they go about doing jobs for the sake of money and gain. They try to get on, and their children have got to get on and have a better education and a nicer house and all that. So basically, they're all trying to get on, and this is rather deviates from the norm, you know, from my norm, you know.
But what is it about children that particularly appeals to you?
Well, because they are the truth, you know. Everything inside them is the truth. If they've been brought up reasonably normal, that's fine. That's lovely. I just like them. I love the sound of their voices. I love their vivacity, their laughter. When they cry, they let you know exactly what they cry, and then there's an immediate call for help, which you never know with an adult. They might be in great need help and never let you know. The children, all on the surface. It's lovely. It's all honest. It's very open. It's very clear. It's like black and white. It's lovely.
Not
what we do without them.
Not a very idealized view. I mean, some people would say that children were capable, for instance, of great cruelty to each other.
Yes,
they're
they
not,
are, but they're genuine cruelties, and not conceived ones like bamboo shoots up the end of nails and things like that. I did my share of pulling wings off flies when I was young, you know, and I was horrified that I ever did it, you know. There are strange, primitive things still locked up in man when he's young, you know. It's still a primitive little thing, and they try to emerge. But I would like them to emerge much more in the fashion of the Aborigines who grow from children into adult children, you know. They're grown-up children, adult children, and they look and they feel the same, they laugh the same too.
You don't feel it an evasion of reality to cut yourself off in that way from the mass of grown-up human beings and turn to animals, children, plants as a source
I suppose there's an amount of moral cowardice in it, because I suppose I won't face up to major, gigantic adult difficulties. I don't want to know about them, because I didn't manufacture Western society, and I don't quite agree with it. I'm in it, but I lock myself up for days sometimes in a room on my own, read books, play music, play Chopin and Ravel, and I find it very good and I don't need people. You know, I don't need them.
Do you look back on your own childhood as the moment of greatest happiness for you?
Yes, I think, yes. I'm always harkening back to it, and as I get older, I feel more every day. Frequently, I remember more and more things in my childhood, and I dream a lot about wanting to be a child again. I think I should never have become an adult. That's where I went wrong.
And do you think it's true of most people that their childhood is their only opportunity for real happiness?
I think if the parents are right, yes. I mean, you get more laughter out of a child than you do out of an adult. In my house, my daughter Jane's always laughing, and two friends laughing and laughing and laughing, you know, and then silences, and then more bursts of laughing, and then rushing around and all this. It's all good stuff, man.
Now, what I meant was rather more, was whether you think that adults are actually incapable in our society of happiness, and happiness is only to be found among children.
Well, the society that's been created, David, is a very material one. And happiness cannot be allied to materialism. Buying a television is not a happiness, it's an occasion for possibly enjoyment. But real happiness can be done without any of these mechanical or financial artifacts of life. Real happiness is getting up, opening the window and seeing rain. And you think, isn't that beautiful, you know? Or seeing the sun, or change of the wind, direction of wind. That's all beautiful. Nothing to do with Western civilization, though. They're at the beginning of time and be here after we're gone.
I want you to hear now from somebody who's a professional colleague, Judith Craig, who was company and stage manager for the Bed Sitting Room, talking about what it's like to work with you.
I like him tremendously. Adore him, in fact. But I have got criticisms. I think he can be cruel. I think he'd be very kind. For cruelty, I can think of various things that have happened. Number one was a young actor who was the understudy for Spike and had his great chance of playing for Spike. So I sent a telegram to him, wishing him luck, and a bottle of whiskey. The young man was thrilled, went round showing this telegram to everybody. A week later, Spike came back. The young man rushed up to him and said, thank you very much for your telegram, etc. And Spike said, I didn't send it. It was her. And there I saw somebody destroyed. In the end of the running, he was off for weeks and weeks, and came in after the notice had gone up and wanted to see one of the actors. And the stage door man refused, so he took his stick, which he had with him, to be given to him by his grandfather, and was a silver one, and he broke it over the door man's head.
That's two stories which throw a curious light on what seemed to be a kind of impetuous anger, bad temper in you. Is that accurate?
I don't remember having a silver stick for my grandfather. I don't remember the incident. I don't remember any of the incidents, actually. Mind you, if she sent him a telegram and the chap thanked me for it, I was only telling the truth, saying that obviously she must have signed it with my name. I was telling the truth, but then the truth can be cruel, can't it?
Are you an angry person? Do you have outbursts of rage?
Angry, yes. I get angry, yes. Frustration, I suppose. I get frustrated at the impossible, and like trying to phone a chap up for 4 days, and the phone breaks down, and you get cross lines, and somebody gets through to you, and it goes on and on and on and on. Then you get frustrated. I suppose this is normal, yes.
But a violent person?
I've never hit my children. I've never hit my wife. I've never had blows with my brother. I hit a boy once. I did some boxing, mind you. But I hit a boy once, and I'll remember his name as long as I live. His name was Tom Conlon, and I hit him in the eye. And it got black, and that's the only time I've ever hit anybody. Oh, I hit another bloke once at the Phoenix Theatre in Dublin, yes. He was barracking me from the box. I said, come backstage if you don't like the show. And I came to the door and I hit him. And then I went back on the stage.
Are you...
It's ridiculous, isn't it? It's ridiculous.
Are you a difficult person to work with? Do your colleagues find you difficult to work with?
I don't know. I don't know. I hope I'm not, you know. I work very hard and I like to rehearse very hard, and I'm always getting at people saying, do it this way, do it that way, do it this way. And sometimes they say, oh, for Christ's sake, you know, let me do it my way.
Do you suffer from actors' prima donna-ishness, that sort of quality? Are you very finicky and fussy and prickly when you're working?
See, these are the questions you should ask other people like Judith Craig, you know. She's alarmed me now as to what I might be like. I don't think so. I turn up on time, I run my lines. Dick Lester might have told you if I was a prima donna. I don't think I am. I don't think so. I was in the Goon Show days because I was trying to shake the BBC out of its apathy, you know, knock sound effects were a knock on the door and trunch on gravel. That was it. And I tried to transform it, and I had to fight like mad, and people didn't like me for it. And I had to rage and bang and crash, and got it all right in the end, and it paid off, but drove me mad in the process, and drove a lot of other people mad, and that's why I don't think I could be a success again on that same level, because I just couldn't go through all the tantrums. That's what you have to do if you want to be really big, man.
There was that famous case when you shot the boy who was breaking into your workroom at the bottom of the garden, and had 12 months discharge for that, and then said I'd shoot a cat if it went after my birds, and had to resign from all the animal-loving societies because of that. I mean, both those things seem to show a certain willingness to take up, if only the air gun, take up an air gun, fire at a kid.
Yes, it was very, very wrong of me, David. It was very wrong of me. Shooting the cat up the arse, I would do that any day. If I saw them about to kill fledglings, you know, I mean, so I would shoot you up the arse if I saw you about to kill your grandmother. Mind you, I might help you with some grandmothers as they are today. I just said I would, it's my own cat. I mean, so I can shoot him up his arse if he's my cat. I feed the other end, so I certainly should help them. They use killing birds, you see, young birds. And people don't know how one cat can destroy the entire avian life in 20 gardens in about 2 years. He can destroy it. So I had the air gun because I could never get to the animal in time, and I would ping him, and I got a very light pellet. Used to sting him, didn't penetrate the flesh. But all the "Oh, my poor pussycat" brigade, never mind the rest of the world, that can die. Never mind the mangled body of little birds with their wings torn off, that's okay. But poor pussycat, oh, poor pussycat. Poor pussycat.
Let's have a
pussycat. What?
A return visit from Jimmy Grafton.
When you achieve, as he has done, a reputation for eccentricity, he's become by his own choice a sort of court jester, you begin to wonder to what extent, in some circumstances, the eccentricity is involuntary, and to what extent it's deliberate, and he's using it as a shield to deflect the will and purpose of those who would control him or discipline him or put him into circumstances that he wants no part of. He can always get out of trouble by going a little mad. But is this deliberate, or is it something that he can't help? Somewhere there is a line that he crosses from time to time, and I would like to know what he thinks, where he thinks that line is.
Can you answer that?
Most certainly I'm unbalanced. I'm not a normal person. That's very hard, a very hard thing to have placed upon you in life when you only live once. I have no control over it. I certainly don't organize my personality so that I can extract myself from situations by suddenly going, right? I face up to life. I fight a lot of battles against authorities, and if you fight authorities, you cannot face them by being mad. You have to be very sane and sound and write the right letters and all things like that. So in this respect, I have a great degree of control of myself when I'm doing the proper things. Of course, if some idiot, I mean, say, across the street, shout, they often say, "Oh, you! Oh, come here! Here, you, Spine Millington, come here!" You know. So, and I walk towards them, and then I go right past them, down a tube train, you see, like this. Well, that's just because they're a crowd of idiots, I don't want to know them. That's a very minor way of putting it, of course. I wouldn't ever avoid major responsibilities like look after my wife and my family, my principles, you know. Sometimes I have to break my principles, like I belong to ASH, the anti-smoking organization, but then I owed a lot of tax, inland revenue, and I didn't know what to do about it. And a commercial came up for a cigarette, and I had to walk the bedroom at night, and I thought, wait a minute, I'm an actor, this is a job of acting, I'm promoting these cigarettes, which breaks my heart, but I'm not a smoker. Do I owe to myself? So I've got to survive in this jungle, right? So I thought, I've got to do this commercial to pay my tax, to be law-abiding. At the same time, a little bit of my morality had been chipped away, and I've never got over that.
Because you've been rather a hefty campaigner against smoking.
Yes, I have, yes, yeah. I hate it, you know. I loathe it. I loathe the imposition. I designed a device to get my own back on these smokers. You know, they have to sit like this in the tram buses and all that, you know, and it goes in this. It goes into this eye and up here like this, and you go away red-eyed. And then they come in your home and they smoke at the dinner table and all this, and they destroy what's a nice evening. I thought I'd get one of these, a plastic dome. And so you want to smoke, say, right, lower the dome, and it goes over the top of him. And gradually, this bugger gets filled up with smoke himself. So he's just a great fog in this thing. So he gets it himself. And they wouldn't like that, though, would they? It's got to be spread.
Can I come back to depression? And many people would wonder why, given that you find it difficult to cope with the ordinary pressures of life that everybody has some way or another to cope with, you should choose a profession which actually puts on you an even greater burden of pressure than most people put up with. Why do you choose that?
It chose me, David. I didn't choose it. It chose me. Just like the shape of your nose, you might have chosen a better one if you had a chance, or whichever you like. I don't know. But you're stuck with it, you know. That's just it. I'm stuck with whatever I'm supposed to be. Like whatever the powers said, you're going to be a comedy writer. You're going to suffer for it.
Do you ever have a feeling that you would like to do something entirely different, that you have a secret ambition to do something else?
Well, I have a secret ambition. I do pursue it. I'm an amateur archaeologist and underwater archaeology as well. I'm mad about it, yeah. I like finding about the past because the future looks so dull.
I want you to hear lastly from John Antrobus again.
John! He owes me money.
I think that really he's a man who wants to do and does a tremendous amount of good, but that he believes in God, but in a sense often he believes that God has abandoned this world and left it to Spike Milligan and a few other sort of stalwarts to hold the fort, and I think that's enough to drive anybody potty.
That's lovely, yes. No, I'm sure I'm not running the world, John says. I do think, what I did say to him one day, he said, you're saying life is very bad. I said, if you believe in God, you must have faith. I said, well, I have faith, but I also think that life is so very precarious that God is imperfect. Who said God should be perfect? We might be living with a God who's imperfect, created an imperfect system. That's how it seems to me. He means well. We all mean well. Just he can't get it together, man.
What do you find of the many things you do the most rewarding, satisfying?
For personal gain or for communal gain, you know?
Well, you make the distinction, not me.
For me, I suppose digging in the ruins of Zimbabwe, or digging when we did the dig at the Baynard's Castle next to the Mermaid. That's very pleasing. Sunny day with your shirt off and looking into the past. I find that very exciting.
Not your work?
Work is difficult, yeah. But when it's done and it's been a success, of course your dear old ego glands start to turn around and say, oh good, I've written a bestseller, great. It's agony when you're writing them. So I was trying to write just before I came here, and it was really grim, grinding it out. Because I'm not a scholar, you see.
When you look back on your life at the stage you are now...
You look sideways at mine.
Look sideways.
You've got a bad neck.
Do you have any point at which you think things might have been different, something which, if it hadn't happened, you would not have had to put up with this burden of manic depression, all the rest of it, for these last 20 years?
Something else might have happened. If I might have stayed a jazz musician, I might have... I think I might have been happier not having become so profound in myself. I'd have been very lightweight and just wanting to play the jazz of an evening and chat up the birds and have a drink of wine and go to bed. Then the next gig the next night. That's like that. Because when you're playing, it's very good. It's therapeutic.
Could you ever go back to that kind of life?
I don't think so, because to play the trumpet, you've got to practice 4 or 5 hours a day, and I think I'm just a bit past it now. I think so, yes.
So that's
past it.
that kind of easy happiness or tranquility really has eluded you.
Yes, it has, completely. Yes. I remember what happiness was. I still get great glows of warmth and satisfaction from seeing children and sunny days, things that are going right in the world, and beautiful buildings. Get lovely warm feeling. It's not that happiness that I hear coming from my daughter when she's running up and down the hall laughing.
Spike Milligan, thank you.
Thank you, David.